Hello everyone, this is CS Divesh Goyal, practicing company secretary from Delhi. So I welcome all of you in the webinar on the PAS6 and the DPT and Demat provisions. As we are receiving so many queries from the professional on the regular basis in relating to the provision of the Demat as well as the PS6. So we are doing this second webinar today on the PS6 and the Demat provisions. The only motto of this webinar to resolve the queries of the professionals as well as the corporate and any person who join this webinar. So today in this webinar, we are going to discuss in detail the provision of the DMAT and their applicability on the private limited companies, and if it is applicable on the private company, some type of private company, then how to file the PS6 and what are the information we should mention in the PS6. Because on the regular basis, whether through the WhatsApp group or whether through the other social media platform, regularly we are getting queries from the professionals. So just to resolve those queries, we are having this webinar today to detail discussion on the provision of the DMAT. So I welcome all of you. Just one thing before starting the webinar, if you have any question during the webinar, please make mention your question in the chat box. We will try our best to resolve all your question, whatever you have raised during the webinar. Further, in the last webinar, many persons has asked for the presentation and asked for the detail note on the PS6 and the DPET provision. So this provision, the screen you must see the everything about the PS6. This note I have already published on the blog, that is csdiveshgoyal.com. So anyone who want to read the blog and read the blog anytime, you can go onto my blog and you can read it. So let's start our discussion about the PS6. So our center focus today is the PS6. Although with the PS6, we will discuss the DMAT provisions also. So we know the provisions of the DMAT earlier was applicable only on the listed companies. If I will talk about the scenario 10 years down the before the line, we will see that the DMAT provision was only applicable on the listed company. So whenever we discuss the word DMAT, only listed company came into our mind. But the ministry has changed this scenario with the regular amendment under Companies Act 2013. Ministry came with amendment under Companies Act on the 2nd October 2018. 2nd October 2018, they amend the provision of the Companies Act and they make it mandatory for the public limited companies to convert their share into DMAT. So before 2nd October 2018, the provision of the DMAT was only applicable on the listed companies. But from the 2nd October 2018, it's become applicable on the public limited companies also. At the time when it is became applicable on the public limited companies, it was a big chaos because people was not ready to demit their share into in the public companies also. Because of this, many public companies got converted into private companies. Generally, we can say family-owned public companies. Many family-owned public companies became converted into private companies because of this provision. So after 2018, it was like this provision will now not applicable on the private limited companies. But then ministry came with a notification on the 27th of October 2023. Companies prospectus and allotment of securities, second amendment rule 2023. According to this rule, ministry come up with this provision on the private limited companies also. So practically speaking, the professional, the corporate was not ready for the private company and the DMAT applicability, but ministry came with such provision. And if we will see as a big picture, the main motto behind the DMAT is transparency and to stop the backdated compliances. We know we have seen many times backdated compliances are going into the private companies and there is no transparency into the private company. But after it became DMAT, these two things are now controlled. If the shares are into DMAT, definitely backdated transfer cannot possible. Backdated allotment is not possible. Second, the data is always transparent, always available with the ministry, with the RTA, with the NSDL, the depository. So the biggest reason behind this is the transparency and the stop the backdated compliances. As per the provision of the 27th October 2023, the DMAT provision became applicable on all the non-small private companies with effect from 30th September 2024. So they make the 30th September 2024 the date when the provision of the Demat shall applicable on the non-small private companies. I am very clear whenever I will talk about the private company here, I am talking only about the non-small private company. Small private company I am not discussing in this webinar. So 30th September. But as we know, there are the lakhs of private companies, lakhs of non-small private companies in India. So it became difficult for the depositories like CDSL and NSDL. We know we are only having two depositories, CDSL and NSDL. It became difficult for them also to implement, to issue the ISIN to the private companies. So they also requested to the ministry to extend the date. So ministry on the 12th February 2024 came up with the notification and they have extended the due date from 30th September to the 30th June 2025. So now the 30th June 2025 is due date. Till then, each and every private company which is non-small is required to obtain the ISIN. I'm just focusing on this point because many persons have asked this question also. If you are a non-small private company, if you are a company secretary or chartered accountant, whether in a practicing on job, and you are consultant to a non-small private company, if you are a non-consultant to a non-small private company, make sure your non-small private company should get ISIN till 30th June. If such private company will not get the ISIN till 30th June, then I must say this shall be a non-compliance of the provision of the Companies Act. So make sure if your non-small private company already received the ISIN, that is a good thing. But if you have already not received the ISIN, make sure you receive the ISIN before 30th June. If 30th June will be crossed and companies not having ISIN, then it is a non-compliance on companies. And we are seeing right now, definitely the provision will be applicable on the private company from the 1st July. But earlier, as I discussed, since 2018, it is applicable on the public company. So ministry are already imposing the penalty on the public company if their shares are not into Demat, if their companies have not applied for the IC. Now a question arises whether the amendment is applicable only to share or other type of securities as well. So this amendment, this provision of Demat is applicable on the shares as well as the securities. So it is covering all type of securities, whether equity, preference, debenture, warrant, etc. When we discuss about the bigger picture of the provision of the Demat, we have to go through the section 29, rule 9 of the company's prospectus and allotment of securities, second amendment rule, MC notification dated 10th September 2018, 27th October 2023, 12th February 2025, and after all these notification, the provision of the Demat shall be mandatorily applicable on a non-small private company with effect from 1st July 2025. So 1st July 2025. Now, what will be the impact of this? I'm just taking 1 minute. If after 1st July 2025, non-small private company cannot transfer share into physical, cannot allot any new share into physical, cannot buy back into physical. So all the transaction in the non-small private company with effect from the 1st July 2025 shall be through the Demat form only. So make sure whatever transaction your company want to do into physical, make it done before 30th June 2025. After this, you will not able to do any physical transactions into the private company relating to the securities. Now the question arises, which form is involved? So this is our main point of discussion today, PS6. PS6 is involved for this provision. So if Demat is applicable on your company have to file PES6 with the ROC within 60 days from the conclusion of each half year. I have received so many questions on the PS6 already in the GAN group, which I will discuss. But first, I will take 5 to 7 more minutes to conclude the provisions. So once provisions are concluded, we will discuss the question answer. I am having some FAQs which I will discuss. You must be having some questions which you want to discuss. So we will discuss in detail. And the best part of the question answer, sometime some other person ask a question and your query get resolved. So first thing, non-applicability of the provision of the Demat. It is not applicable on the Nidhi company. It is not applicable on the government company. It is not applicable on the wholly owned subsidiary of a public company, and it is not applicable on the small private company. These are the four type of companies on which provision of the Demat are not applicable. I receive many questions on this third point, wholly owned subsidiary company of a public company. If your company is a wholly owned subsidiary of a private company, then what will be the scenario? If your company is a wholly owned subsidiary of a private company, then the provision of Demat will be applicable on your company. Exemption is only applicable in one condition, when your company is a wholly owned subsidiary of a public limited company. Otherwise, exemption is not available. Now the question arises whether the provision of Demat is applicable on the Section 8 company limited by guarantee. Then my answer will be no. This provision will be applicable only when the company is limited by the share capital. If there is no share capital, provision are not applicable. Many person ask me a question, there is a small private company which is a holding or subsidiary of the another private company which is also small. Whether the provision of the Demat applicable on them. So see, let me describe this as per the definition of the small company. If your company having any holding or subsidiary, you will not be considered as a small company. So doesn't matter what is your capital, doesn't matter what is your turnover. But if you are a holding or subsidiary of any company, you will be considered as a non-small company and the provision of Demat shall be applicable on you. So there may be scenario, there is a private company only with 1 lakh capital and I can say only with 1 lakh of turnover. But still the Demat provision is applicable on that because that company may be subsidiary or holding of any other company. So if your company is a subsidiary of holding of any company, it will be considered as a non-small company. So the applicability on the public company with effect from the 2nd October 2018 and applicability on the non-small private company with effect from 30th June 2025. Small company, everyone know, a company which is having paid up share capital up to 4 crore and turnover up to 40 crore. If both the conditions are fulfilled, then only you will be considered as a small company. If any one condition, if you will fails to fulfill, then you will be considered as a non-small company. Means there may be scenario your capital is below 4 crore, but your turnover cross 40 crore, you will be considered as a non-small company. And that will be the vice versa situation. Key applicability. So once the provision of Demat is applicable on you, the first thing as a company you have to do, you have to apply for the ICSI. ICSI is the mandatory to enable your shareholder to convert their share into Demat. If you are not having the ICSI, your shareholder cannot convert their share into Demat. So make sure if you are a non-small private company, you get the ICSI before 30th June 2025. Otherwise, it shall be considered as a non-compliance on your part and company may be liable for the penalties under Companies Act. Now the next provision. Next provision is relating to the PS6. Let's discuss about the PS6. Let me just share the screen for the PS6. You can see this complete presentation is applicable on the my blog. PS6. Every non-small private company or a public company shall submit PS6 to the ROC within 60 days from the conclusion of the half year. So half year conclude from the April 1st to September 30. The due date is 29th November. And for the period ending on 31st March, the due date is 30th May. Today is the 20th May. So due date is the 30th May. Many companies have to file their PS6 till 30th May. So make sure you are still having the 10 days. If you are attending this webinar, you are still having the 10 days to file this form. If your form is not already filed, file it is as soon as possible with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Next provision. What is the due dates? We have already discussed the due dates of the PS6. The due date of the PS6 is the 29th November and the 30th May. Now let's discuss how to file the PS6. Key highlight about PS6. We have to mention all the information in the PS6 relating to the ICSI. First, you have to mention the ICSI in the PS6. If your company is not having the ICSI, then you are not able to file the PS6. PS6 is only able to file when you are having the ICSI. In the PS6, you have to give the details like the share held in CDSL, share held in Demat with the NSDL, and share held in physical form. So there are the three categories. And if there is any difference between issue and total capital, you have to mention that reason. Details of change in share capital during the half year, अगर कुछ changes हुए हैं तो detail regarding updated register of member. First part, once the Demat provision is applicable on you, you don't have to prepare the register of member. The provision of the register of member will not be applicable on you. Once the Demat is applicable, your register shall be prepared by the RTA. So you have to take the register from the RTA after that. And PS6 is mandatorily required to be certified by the CA and CS. So what are the steps for filing of the info? What are the steps for the process for filing of PS6? First, obtain the ISIN. Second, obtain a reconciliation statement from RTA. So once you will get the ISIN, RTA will maintain your data. You have to get the PAS. You have to get the PAS from the RTA and you can attach that into the PS6. Practically, there is no mandatory attachment in the PS6, but we will suggest you to attach the PAS in the PS6. And if a company fails to file the PS6 till 30th May within due date, company and officer in default liable for the penalty of rupees 10,000 and 1,000 rupees per day. Maximum penalty on the company is 2 lakh and the officer is a 50,000. Although many times we have seen people are saying that ROC will not impose the penalty. See, ROC will impose the penalty or not, we cannot say that. It is the complete discretion of the ROC. We have seen some cases in case of the public company where ROC has already imposed the penalties on the company. So make sure if provision is applicable on you, make sure you file the PS6 till 30th May. Now I am going to discuss one very important question and then I will take the other question. The most important question about PS6. Whether the non-small private companies have to file the PS6 for the half year ended 31st March 2024, for which due date is the 30th May. Every day I'm getting this question from the different profession, although I have published so many updated in the form of the images, in the form of the articles on the WhatsApp, Instagram, LinkedIn, all social media I am raising the updates because the purpose of the update to you can say increase the knowledge and provide the clarity to everyone. So when we say whether a private company have to file the PS6 for the half year ended 31st March 2025 or not, there are two school of thought. Practically, you can say both school of thought are correct. It's just on you which approach you want to adopt. Approach number one. If your company has already obtained the ISIN till 31st March, if your private company has already obtained the ISIN till 31st March, then you are already having the ISIN, then you should go for the filing of the PS6 also. It is a nominal amount, the fees, the nominal amount 300 to 600. And if you are already received the ISIN, you should go for the filing of the PS6. But the second approach says, as the due date for the ISIN for the private company is the 30th June 2025. So the provision will be mandatorily applicable on the private company from the 1st July 2025. So once the provision will be applicable mandatory from the 1st July 2025, the half year will be end on the 30th September 2025. Then company should file the first PS6 for the private company in the November 2025. These are the two approaches. Now the question arises, which approach we should adopt? See, practically, I must say, it is completely the choice of the company which approach they want to adopt. One, you can say conservative approach, other is the non-conservative approach. If you want to go like this, if we are already having the ISIN, it's just a matter of 300 to 600 fees, and why to not file, why not to update the ministry, then you can go for the PSA. But other side, you can say the due date is 30th June, first time it will be applicable on the 30th September, you can go with that approach. So see, until unless ministry come with a clarification, you have to adopt your own approach and accordingly you have to work. Because if ministry come with a clarification, then it will be clear when you have to file the form. But until unless ministry is not coming with any clarification, you have to adopt your own approach and accordingly you have to file this form. So there are the two ways I have suggested you. From the two way, you have to select which way you want to select and how you want to file the form. Now the next question I am receiving from the profession on the regular basis, whether it is mandatory that for each type of shares or each type of security, a company is required to obtain different ISIN. The answer will be yes. ISIN is a security-based number. So for an example, your company having the equity share, preference share, and debenture. Then there will be the three ISIN, one for the equity, one for the preference, and one for the debenture. And there will be one more scenario, you are having different class of preference share. Then ISIN will be different for each class of preference share. So make sure as many as type of security you are having, you should have ISIN for each type of security separately. Now the question arises, if we are having more than one ISIN, whether we have to file one PS6 or we have to file more than one PS6. So earlier, before the MCA V3 version, in the MCA V2 version, If you are having more than one ISIN, there was required to file separate form for the each ISIN. But in the MCA V3 version, as many as ISIN you are having, you have to file single PS6. In single PS6, you can mention all the ISIN. But make sure if by chance you have filed the PS6 and you miss to mention information of any ISIN, then you will not allow to file one more PS6. So make sure when you are filing the PS6, you should mention all the ISIN. Now there is one more question. There are a company having two types of security, equity share and preference share. Company have already obtained the ISIN for the equity share, but ISIN for the preference share is on the way, still not received. Then how to file the PS6? In this situation, I will suggest file the PS6 with the one ISIN and mention a letter that ISIN for the preference share is still pending, so we are not able to mention those information. That will be the best approach to file this form. So now the question, is PS6 applicable on the private company? I have already given answer of this. They are the two school of thought. You can adopt any school of thought as per your convenience. Whether a company can file PS6 without having dematerialized its share. This is a very good question. See, it may be possible that your company have received the ISIN, but the shareholder of your company has not converted their share into demat. Then in such scenario, whether you should file the PS6 or not, my answer will be definitely you should file the PS6. PS6 is not saying you have to file only in case of demat. No. Once you are having the ISIN, you can file the PS6. And in the PS6, you are having two columns to mention the share in physical, to mention the share in demat. If you all share on physical, you can just mention the number in the physical and file the form. It's nothing like that form want your share into demat only. Should we file PS6 if there is no change in the shareholding during the half year? Yes, doesn't matter there is any change in the shareholding during the half year or not. You have to file PS6. What is the role of PS practicing CS and CA? Practicing CA and CS have to check the data in PS6 and they have to certify mandatory this form. If all shares of the company are still in physical form and have not converted into demat, whether such a company is also required to file PS6? I have already given answer of this. The answer is yes. Whether UDIN is mandatory for the whether company are required to apply for the separate ISIN for each type of security? I have already discussed this. If a company have multiple security, does need to file multiple PS form? The answer is no. Only single PS form is enough. Whether UDIN is required to generate for certification of PS6. If PS6 is getting certified by the chartered accountant, then definitely UDIN is mandatory as per ICAI. But if PS6 is getting certified by the company secretary, the UDIN is not mandatory. But I'm advising everyone, if you are certifying PS6, please generate the UDIN. Do we need to attach any document with the PS6? No, there is not mandatory attachment with the PS6, but it is advisable to attach the BANPOS with the PS6. One thing, a person is the promoter in the company as well as the director of the company. So how to provide the detail of the shareholding in column number 8? See, if a person is director as well as a promoter in the company, then mention the detail in the promoter column or director column, any one column. It is totally your choice. Government is not having any clarity, given any clarity on the same. It is totally your choice, but I will suggest to go with the promoter column so that it will be match your balance sheet also. So these are the some question on the PS6, which I have already received from the persons from the different group, which I compiled and I published in an article. Some question I can see in my chat box also. Shareholding in Demat mode 99.99, 01 in the physical. While entering the number of share in the Demat mode is show 100% in column and physical mode column percentage showing as 0. See, definitely once you will mention the number, it will show like this, but you should mention the actual number in the form and file the forms, because 99.999 form will consider as 100 only. So these are the basic question which everyone is asking me through the different social media platform on the PS6. Hope all these question of you are clear today in this video. Still, there are the 10 days for everyone to file this form without any penalty. If you file after 30th June, 30th May, you have to pay the additional fees. You may liable for the penalty from the ROC, which I said 10,000 plus 1 day on the company. And ऐसा नहीं है. Earlier, there was a scenario when ROC was not imposing the penalties, but current date, ROC imposing the heavy penalty on the companies who are filing the form with delay after the due date. So make sure you file the PS6 with the correct information within the due date. If you're still having any question, any doubt relating to the PS6, mention in the chat box, mention in the chat box of the video. The recording of this webinar I will publish on my YouTube channel only. So anytime you can watch the video. And whoever is online, I just request please like and subscribe the video so that whenever I upload a new video, you will get the answers, you will get the update of the same. So hope you like this video and thank you so much for attending this webinar in the weekday. Thank you so much.